The counterattack came 2 weeks later, and it came straight for the heart of the Empire. Valeera was in her private study when the first explosions shook the palace. The lights flickered. Alarms began screaming throughout the building. She ran to the window and saw fire rising from the outer walls. Counselor Myra burst in seconds later. "Your Majesty, Keth dropships have landed in the city. They bypassed our orbital defenses completely. We think they had help from traitors in the defense grid. How many? We do not know. Hundreds, perhaps thousands. They are fighting through the streets toward the palace." Valeera's blood ran cold. This was not an invasion. This was an assassination. Warlord Gorak was coming for her personally. "Where's Danny?" she asked. "I do not know, Your Majesty. We need to get you to the emergency bunker immediately." 4 royal guards escorted Valeera through the palace corridors. The sounds of battle grew louder with every step. Gunfire, explosions, screams. The Keth were already inside the building. They reached the junction and found bodies. Fashion guards, torn apart by weapons designed to breach starship armor. The Keth were not taking prisoners. "This way, Your Majesty," the lead guard said, pulling her toward a side passage. They made it 20 steps before the wall exploded. Valeera was thrown to the ground, her ears ringing. Through the smoke and dust, she saw massive shapes emerging from the breach. Keth shock troops, each one standing 8 feet tall, covered in black armor, carrying weapons that glowed with deadly energy. 2 of her guards were already dead. The remaining 2 stood over her, weapons raised, knowing they could not win but determined to die trying. "The Queen," one of the Keth said, his voice like grinding metal. "Warlord Gorak will be pleased. Kill the guards. Take her alive." The Keth advanced. Valeera closed her eyes, waiting for the end. "That's not going to happen." The voice was calm, almost casual. Valeera's eyes snapped open. Danny stood at the end of the corridor. He was wearing the same simple clothes he always wore. He had no armor. He carried no weapons. He looked exactly like what his file said he was. An ordinary man who had no business being anywhere. Near a battlefield, the lead Keth laughed. "A human? One human thinks he can stop us." "I'm giving you one chance," Danny said. His voice had changed. It was still quiet, but there was something underneath it now. Something cold. "Turn around. Walk away. Tell Garig he made a mistake. Kill him," the Keth commander ordered. 3 warriors charged forward, weapons raised. What happened next would stay with Valeera. For the rest of her life, Danny moved. He did not run or dodge or take cover. He simply moved toward the Keth, like water flowing around stones. The first warrior swung a blade that could cut through steel. Danny was not there when it landed. He was beside the warrior, his hand finding a gap in the armor at the neck. The Keth fell without a sound. The second warrior fired his weapon. Danny had already shifted, the blast passing through empty air where he had been a heartbeat before. He caught the warrior's arm, twisted, and the weapon discharged into the third Keth's chest. In 3 seconds, 3 Keth shock troops were down. The remaining 4 hesitated. They had killed hundreds of enemies across a dozen worlds. They had never seen anything like this. Danny did not hesitate. He flowed through them like a ghost. Every movement was precise, efficient, deadly. He found weak points in armor that should have had none. He redirected strikes with a touch, turning the Keth's own strength against them. He killed without passion, without anger, without apparent effort. In 11 seconds, 7 Keth shock troops lay dead on the floor. Danny stood among the bodies, not even breathing hard. He reached down and picked up a fallen energy rifle, checking its charge with the ease of long practice. Then he looked at Valeera. For a moment, she did not recognize him. The man standing before her was not her husband. This was something else. Something ancient and dangerous wearing a human face. More will be coming, Danny said. His voice was still calm. We need to move. Can you walk? Valera found her feet. Her surviving guards helped her up, staring at Danny with something like fear. Who are you? She whispered. Danny's expression softened slightly. For just a moment, she saw the man she had married behind those cold eyes. Someone who should have told you the truth a long time ago, he said. But we don't have time for that now. Stay behind me. They moved through the palace in a nightmare of smoke and blood. Twice more they encountered Keth squads. Each time, Danny dealt with them so quickly that Valera barely had time to register the threat before it was over. He moved differently now. He walked differently. Even his breathing was different. Everything about him had changed. This was what he had been hiding. This was the weight he carried. They reached the emergency bunker just as Thashan forces began to push back the invasion. Inside the secure command center, Valera finally had a moment to breathe. She turned to face her husband. Explain, she said. Now, Danny set down the rifle he had been carrying. He suddenly looked tired, old, like a man who had been running for a very long time and had finally stopped. My real name is Daniel Collison, he said quietly. I was not a logistics coordinator. I was a member of a human special operations unit so classified that officially it does not exist. I have been a soldier since I was 17 years old. I have done things that I cannot speak about, in places that are not on any map. I have killed more people than I can count. Valera stared at him. The humans sent me an assassin? They sent you a weapon, Danny corrected. One they wanted to hide somewhere no one would think to look. One they thought would never be needed again. He met her eyes. I am sorry, Valera. I wanted to be the man in the file. I wanted that more than anything. But I could not let them hurt you. Outside, the sounds of battle were fading. The Keth assault had failed, but inside the bunker, something far more important had shattered. Valera looked at the man she had married and realized she did not know him at all. The bunker was quiet now. The battle reports on the screens showed green instead of red. The Keth assault had been pushed back. The city was being secured. The immediate crisis was over, but Valera felt no relief. She sat across from Danny in a small private room off the main command center. 2 cups of tea sat untouched on the table between them. Her husband looked different now. Not physically, but in the way he held himself. The mask of the simple gardener was gone. Tell me everything, she said. Danny was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was heavy with memory. I grew up on a colony world at the edge of human space. When I was 17, raiders hit my town. They killed my parents. They killed almost everyone I knew. A military rescue team found me 3 days later. I had survived by hiding in the water treatment plant. He paused. The soldiers who found me saw something. I do not know what. They offered me a choice. I could go to a refugee camp and start over as a normal citizen. Or I could come with them and learn to make sure what happened to my town never happened to anyone else. You chose to fight. I chose to fight. They trained me for 8 years. Not regular military training. Something else. Something deeper. They taught me how to move, how to think, how to see the world in ways normal people cannot. They broke me down and built me back up as something new. Valera thought of the way he had moved through those Keth warriors. Fluid, precise, inhuman. What did they call you? Danny's jaw tightened. The quiet death, because enemies who saw me did not live to tell anyone about it. For 30 years, I was the solution to problems that could not be solved through normal means. When diplomacy failed, when armies could not reach, when everything else was impossible, they sent me. How many missions? I stopped counting after 200. It would not help you to know the number. Valera absorbed this. Her husband, the man who tended her gardens and made friends with her kitchen staff, had been one of the deadliest weapons in human history. Why did you stop? Danny closed his eyes. Because I broke. Not physically. Something inside me. I woke up one morning, and I could not remember why I was doing it anymore. I could not remember what it felt like to be a person instead of a tool. I walked into my commander's office and told him I was done. And they just let you go? No, they do not just let people like me go. We know too much. We can do too much. They had to put me somewhere safe. Somewhere I could not talk, could not be found, could not be used by anyone else. A bitter smile crossed his face. Marriage to an alien queen on the other side of the galaxy seemed perfect to them. Hide the weapon in plain sight. You were never supposed to be needed again. No, I was supposed to grow old quietly and die without anyone ever knowing what I had been. And honestly, Valera, that was what I wanted too. When I stepped off that ship and saw this world, I felt something I had not felt in decades. Hope, peace, the possibility of being something other than death with a human face. He looked at her directly. I was not pretending with you. Everything I felt, everything I said, that was real. I wanted to be Danny, the logistics coordinator. I wanted to be your husband. I wanted to watch sunsets and grow vegetables and forget what my hands were trained to do. Valera felt something in her chest. Anger, yes. Betrayal, but also something else. Understanding, perhaps. Or pity. Why did you not tell me? Because I was afraid. His voice cracked slightly. Afraid that if you knew what I was, you would look at me differently. That the peace I found here would disappear. That I would become the weapon again instead of the man. He spread his hands. And now here we are. She was quiet for a long time. The weight of his confession sat between them like a physical thing. The Cath will return, she said finally. Gorak will not accept this defeat. No, he will not. Can you stop him? Danny met her eyes. In that moment, she saw both men he had been. The killer and the gardener. The weapon and the husband. Yes, he said quietly. I can stop him. But if I do, if I step back into that world, I do not know if I can ever leave it again. Everyone will know. The galaxy will know. I will never be invisible again. Is that such a terrible thing? I do not know. For 30 years, invisibility was the only thing that kept me safe. That kept the people around me safe. When you become known, you become a target. And everyone near you becomes a target too. Valera reached across the table and took his hands. They were ordinary hands, calloused from gardening, warm and human. It was hard to believe they had killed hundreds of people. I have been a target my entire life, she said. I was born a target. Every queen is. Every leader is. We do not get to choose safety, Danny. We only get to choose what we fight for. And what are you choosing? I am choosing my people, my empire, my husband. She squeezed his hands. I am choosing you. All of you. Not just the gardener. Not just the weapon. The whole man. Danny stared at her. For a moment, his eyes were wet. You should hate me, he whispered. I lied to you. I hid what I was. I let you believe you married someone ordinary. Perhaps. But you also saved my life. You saved my city. And when you had every reason to stay hidden, you chose to protect me instead. She lifted his hands and pressed them to her cheeks. I do not need an ordinary husband, Danny. I need someone who will stand beside me when the darkness comes. Can you be that person? He was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. Yes, he said. I can be that person. Then let the galaxy see what humanity sent to protect me. Let them see what happens when they threaten the Thashan Empire and the Human Alliance. Let them all see. Outside, alarms began to sound again. An officer burst into the room. Your Majesty! Warlord Garuk's flagship has broken through our orbital defenses. He's landing personally with his elite guard. Danny rose to his feet. The tired, broken man vanished. In his place stood something older, something colder, something that had walked through fire and emerged unchanged. Then it is time to end this, he said, and Valera saw in his eyes that the quiet death was awake once more. Warlord Gorak landed in the palace courtyard as the suns reached their peak. His dropship burned a crater into the ancient stones that had stood for 1,000 years. 50 of his elite guard formed around him as the ramp lowered. Each one was a veteran of 100 battles, chosen from the finest warriors of the Keth Dominion. Gorak himself was massive, even by Keth standards. 9 feet tall, covered in ceremonial armor that had belonged to warlords for generations. His eyes burned with hatred and wounded pride. He had come to kill a queen and break an empire. He expected resistance. He expected guards and soldiers, and perhaps even a last desperate stand. He did not expect one man standing alone in the center of the courtyard. Danny Cole waited in the shadow of a fallen pillar. He wore no armor. He carried no gun. In his right hand was a Thashan ceremonial blade, a weapon considered too light and delicate for real combat. It had been a wedding gift, meant for display only. One human? Gorak's voice echoed across the courtyard. The mighty Thashan Empire sends one human to face me? The Empire did not send me, Danny said. His voice was quiet but carried clearly in the silence. My wife asked me to deliver a message. Gorak's mandibles clicked with amusement. Your wife? You are the human who married the queen? The logistics coordinator? He laughed, a sound like stones crashing together. I have heard of you. They say you gave some advice during our first attack. Clever for a human. But advice will not help you now. The message, Danny continued as if he had not been interrupted, is this. Humans are persistence predators. We do not run. We do not hide. We do not surrender. When we choose a target, we follow it across any distance, over any terrain, for as long as it takes. We never stop. He raised the ceremonial blade. The metal caught the sunlight and gleamed. Your hunt ends here, Warlord. You just do not know it yet. For a moment, Gorik was silent. Then he gestured to his guards. Kill him. Make it slow. 10 warriors advanced, weapons ready. They moved in formation, professional and confident. They had killed thousands of enemies together. One unarmed human was not even worth their attention. Danny moved. He did not charge or retreat. He simply flowed forward like water finding cracks in stone. The first warrior swung a massive blade. Danny stepped inside the arc, too close for the weapon to matter. The ceremonial blade slid through a gap in the armor at the throat. The warrior fell. Danny was already moving to the next target. He caught a thrust on his blade, redirected it into another guard, and used a moment of confusion to strike twice more. 4 warriors down in as many seconds. The remaining 6 hesitated. They had never seen anything move like this. This was not fighting as they understood it. This was something else. Something that did not follow the rules of combat they had learned. Danny gave them no time to adjust. He was among them like a shadow, his blade finding every weakness, every gap, every moment of vulnerability. He fought without wasted movement, without emotion, without mercy. Each strike was precise. Each step was calculated. Each death was inevitable. In 20 seconds, 10 elite Keth warriors lay dead in the courtyard. Danny stood among the bodies. His breathing had not changed. His hands were steady. A thin line of blue blood ran down the ceremonial blade. He looked at Gorak. Send more. he said quietly. "Or come yourself." Gorok's eyes had changed. The amusement was gone. In its place was something new. Recognition. Fear. "Where are you?" the warlord asked. "I am a logistics coordinator," Danny replied. "I arrange for things to be where they need to be. Right now, I need you to be dead." Gorok roared and charged forward. He was massive, fast, covered in armor that could withstand starship weapons. He had killed hundreds of enemies with his bare hands. He was the greatest warrior the Keth had. Produced in generations. Danny waited. The warlord swung a fist that could shatter stone. Danny stepped aside, letting it pass within inches of his face. He did not counterattack. He simply moved. Gorok swung again. And again. Each blow was powerful enough to destroy. Each blow hit nothing but air. Danny flowed around the attacks like smoke, never quite where the warlord expected, never quite within reach. "Stand still," Gorok bellowed. "Fight me." "I am fighting you," Danny said calmly. "You are just too slow to see it." And then he struck. The ceremonial blade, so light and delicate, found the small gap between Gorok's helmet and chestplate. It slid in smoothly, precisely, driven by a hand that had made this exact movement thousands of times before. Gorok froze. His eyes went wide. "Impossible," he whispered. "I am the warlord. I am invincible." "No," Danny said quietly. "You are just another target." He withdrew the blade. Gorok fell to his knees, then collapsed face first onto the ancient stones. The remaining guards stared in shock. Their warlord, their leader, the greatest warrior of their generation, was dead. Killed by a single human with a decorative blade. Danny looked at them. "Go home," he said. "Tell your people what happened here. Tell them that the Thashan Empire is protected. Tell them that humans do not forget and do not forgive. Tell them that if they ever threaten this world again, I will come for them. Not their soldiers, not their generals, them, personally, in their homes, in their beds. Wherever they hide, I will find them." He pointed the bloody blade at the dropship. "Go, now." They ran. The finest warriors of the Keth Dominion ran from one man standing alone in a ruined courtyard. Danny watched them go. Then, slowly, the tension drained from his body. The killer faded. The man returned. He looked up at the palace balcony where Valera stood watching. She had seen everything. The violence, the skill, the cold precision of a weapon doing what it was designed to do. For a long moment, they simply looked at each other. Then Valera smiled. And Danny smiled back. The war was over. The Keth would not return. The message had been sent to every civilization in the galaxy. The Thashan Queen's human husband was not to be underestimated. That evening, after the bodies had been removed and the courtyard cleaned and the victory celebrations begun, Valera found Danny in the palace garden. He was kneeling in the dirt, checking on the tomato plants he had been growing for months. "You could have anyone in the galaxy right now," she said. "You could have power, fame, anything you wanted." Danny looked up at her. His hands were covered in soil. His face was peaceful. "I have everything I want," he said. "Right here." She sat beside him in the dirt, not caring about her royal "Will you teach me?" She asked, "How to garden?" Danny laughed. It was a real laugh, warm and genuine, with no shadows behind it. "Yes," he said. "I would like that very much." And so the quiet death became the Queen's gardener once more. But now the galaxy knew his name. Now every enemy of the Thashan Empire knew what waited for them if they stepped out of line. Humanity had sent their best. And their best just wanted to grow tomatoes. Some weapons, it turned out, were most dangerous when they chose peace. The silver ships came down from the sky on a Tuesday morning. They were beautiful in a way that made people stop and stare. The metal seemed to flow like water, catching the sunlight and throwing it back in colors that had no names. People all around the world watched on their televisions and phones as the ships landed in Geneva, Switzerland. The Volanthi had finally come to Earth. For 12,000 years, the Volanthi Empire had ruled the stars. They controlled trade routes across hundreds of worlds. They had technology that humans could not even begin to understand. And now, for the first time, they wanted to talk to the small blue planet called Earth. Princess Lyran Velsora stepped off the ship and onto human soil. She was tall and thin, with skin that seemed to glow faintly silver in the light. Her eyes were the color of polished metal, and her hair fell past her shoulders like strands of white silk. By human years, she was 230 years old. By Volanthi standards, she was still young. Her father, the High Emperor, had warned her about humans. They were young as a species. They had only been traveling in space for 100 years. They fought among themselves constantly. They were loud and messy and unpredictable. Lyran found all of this very interesting. The United Nations had prepared a grand ceremony for the arrival. Diplomats from every country stood in neat rows, wearing their best suits and their most serious faces. Scientists waited nearby, eager to learn whatever the Volanthi might teach them. And standing at attention along both sides of the Great Hall were soldiers from a dozen different nations. They were there as an honor guard, a show of respect for the alien visitors. Lyran walked slowly through the hall, her attendants following close behind. One of them carried a recording device, saving every moment for the Imperial archives. Another whispered translations of the human languages being spoken around them. A third watched for any signs of danger, though what humans could possibly do to threaten a Volanthi princess, no one knew. The human diplomats smiled and bowed. They spoke words of welcome in careful, rehearsed phrases. Lyran nodded politely to each of them. She had seen this kind of thing 100 times on 100 different worlds. It was always the same. The nervous hosts, the stiff formality, the hidden fear behind the friendly faces. She was bored. Then she began to walk past the soldiers. They stood perfectly still. These human warriors. Their uniforms were crisp and clean. Their medals and ribbons caught the light. Each one had been chosen as the best of their nation, the finest examples of human military training and discipline. Lyran barely looked at them. They were all the same to her. Tall ones and short ones. Dark skin and light skin. Men and women standing straight and proud. She had seen soldiers on every world she had ever visited. These were no different. Then she stopped. The soldier in front of her was not special. Anyone looking at him would have seen nothing remarkable. He was average height with brown skin and dark hair cut short. His uniform was the same as all the others. His face showed no expression. He simply stood there, doing his job, waiting for the ceremony to be over. His name tag said Rias. Lyran stared at him for a long moment. Her silver eyes moved across his face, studying every detail. She looked at the way he stood, the way he breathed, the tiny movements of his eyes. Something about him had caught her attention, though she could not explain what it was. Her chief attendant leaned closer. "Your Highness? Is something wrong?" "This one," Lyran said. Her voice was clear and calm. "I beg your pardon? This is the human I want." She tilted her head slightly, still watching the soldier. "I will marry him." The great hall went completely silent. Every diplomat, every scientist, every soldier seemed to freeze in place. The translators stopped mid-word. The cameras kept recording, but the people behind them had forgotten to breathe. Danny Reyes, corporal in the United States Marine Corps, kept his eyes forward. His training told him not to move, not to react, not to do anything until he received an order. But inside his chest, his heart was pounding so hard, he thought it might break through his ribs. Had he heard that correctly? Had an alien princess just said she wanted to marry him? The human diplomats began to whisper frantically among themselves. This was not in the plan. This was not supposed to happen. They had prepared for trade negotiations and technology exchanges. They had not prepared for a royal marriage proposal. General Patricia Vance, the senior American military officer present, stepped forward. She was a woman in her 50s with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had served in 3 wars and had negotiated with hostile governments around the world. But she had never faced anything like this. "Your Highness," she said carefully, "I believe there may be some confusion. Our soldiers are here as part of the honor guard. They are not available for marriage." Lyran turned those silver eyes toward the general. "Are you saying he already belongs to someone else?" "No, but then he's available." The princess smiled. It was a strange expression on her alien features. "I have made my choice. This is the human I will marry." Danny finally allowed himself to blink. He had grown up in a small town in New Mexico. His father fixed cars for a living. His mother was a nurse at the local hospital. He had joined the Marines to help pay for college, thinking he might become a history teacher someday. He had never expected to travel further than the next state dot, and now a princess from the stars was pointing at him and talking about marriage. The Volanthi attendants were recording everything. This would be sent back to the Empire within hours. The High Emperor would see it. The Imperial Council would discuss it. The entire galaxy would know that Princess Lyran had chosen a human mate. "This is highly unusual," one of the senior diplomats said. "We need to discuss this through proper channels. There are protocols." "I am aware of your protocols," Lyran interrupted. She had not stopped looking at Danny. "I have read about your customs. Your marriages require consent from both parties." "Very well. I will wait for his answer." She stepped closer to Danny, close enough that he could smell something like flowers and metal. "But I am patient, and I always get what I want." She turned and walked away, her attendants hurrying to keep up. Danny stood there, still at attention, as the world fell apart around him. Diplomats were shouting. Officers were making phone calls. Somewhere, a journalist was already writing the headline that would change everything. The alien princess had chosen him. Danny had no idea why. The ship that carried Danny to Volanthi Prime was larger than any building he had ever seen. It moved through space like a silver whale swimming through an ocean of stars. Danny spent most of the journey standing at the observation windows, watching galaxies spin past like pinwheels. His family was with him. His mother, Elena, had cried when she first saw the ship. His father, Miguel, had walked around touching everything, asking questions about how it worked. His younger sister, Rosa, had immediately started taking pictures of everything with her phone, even though the phone had stopped working the moment they left Earth's orbit. "I can't believe this is happening," his mother said for the 100th time. "My son, marrying a princess." "An alien princess," Rosa added helpfully. "An alien princess," Elena agreed. She shook her head. "Your grandmother would never believe this." Danny smiled. He was thinking about his grandmother, too. About how she used to tell him stories about magic and adventure, about brave heroes who did impossible things. She would have loved this. She would have laughed and clapped and told everyone she knew that her grandson was going to marry royalty from another planet, Volanthi. Prime was nothing like Earth. The planet was older than human civilization. Its cities rose into the sky like crystal towers, shimmering with colors that hurt Danny's eyes. Rivers of light flowed between buildings. Gardens floated in the air, held up by technology Danny couldn't begin to understand. And everywhere, there were Volanthi. Thousands of them, millions of them, all turning to look as the ship descended. The wedding would take place in the Temple of Eternal Light. It had stood for 9,000 years, built to honor the union of the first Volanti Emperor and his bride. No human had ever set foot inside. No human had ever even seen it until now. Delegations from 100 worlds had come to witness the ceremony. There were species Danny had never imagined. Beings made of fire and beings made of stone. Creatures with wings and creatures with tentacles. Some of them looked at Danny with curiosity, some with disgust, some with something that might have been hope. General Vance had come as Earth's official representative. She looked uncomfortable in the formal robes the Volanti had provided, but she stood straight and proud. "Whatever happens today," she told Danny before the ceremony, "you've already changed everything. Just by standing here, just by being chosen." "I didn't do anything," Danny said. "You showed them that we matter." The general's eyes were serious. "You showed them that a human can stand in their most sacred place and belong. That's not nothing, Corporal. That's everything." The ceremony was beautiful and terrifying. Danny walked down an aisle that seemed to stretch forever. On either side, representatives from across the galaxy watched in silence. The light in the temple shifted and changed, painting patterns on the walls that told stories Danny couldn't read. Music played from somewhere, but it was like no music he had ever heard. It seemed to come from inside his own head. Lyram waited for him at the altar. She wore robes of silver and gold that flowed around her like liquid metal. Her white hair was arranged in patterns that had meaning in her culture, symbols of devotion and hope. Her silver eyes found Danny the moment he entered, and she did not look away. The priest who performed the ceremony was ancient, even by Volanti standards. He spoke in a language that had been old when humans were still living in caves. Danny didn't understand the words, but he felt them. They echoed through his bones, through his heart, through everything he was. Translation devices whispered the meaning into Danny's ear. Promises of loyalty. Pledges of unity. Vows to face the unknown together, whatever it might bring. When it came time for Danny to speak his own vows, he set aside the script that Lyran's attendants had prepared for him. "I don't know what the future holds," he said. His voice was steady, but his heart was racing. "I'm just a guy from a small town in New Mexico. I fix cars and read history books and eat my mother's cooking. I never expected any of this." He looked at Lyran, at her strange and beautiful face, at the woman who had looked at him across a crowded room and seen something worth choosing. "But you saw something in me," he continued. "Something I didn't see in myself. You looked at a regular person from a regular place, and you said, 'That one. I want that one,' and I still don't completely understand why." There were murmurs from the assembled crowd. This was not how Volanti weddings were supposed to go. "I don't know if I can be what your empire needs," Danny said. "I don't know if I can be what you need. But I know that you made me believe I could be more than I ever thought I could be. And I know that whatever time I have, however long that is, I want to spend it trying to live up to what you see when you look at me." He reached out and took her hands. Her fingers were cool against his, familiar now after weeks of meetings and conversations. "I'm just a human," he said. "We live short lives and make big mistakes and feel things too strongly. But we also love fiercely. We hope wildly. We never give up, even when we should." He squeezed her hands gently. "For you, I'll try to be everything I can be. And I'll keep trying until the stars go dark." The temple was silent. Then Lyran did something that broke 10,000 years of tradition. She leaned forward and kissed him. It was a human kiss. The kind of kiss that humans shared when they loved someone. The kind of kiss that Volanti had seen in their studies of Earth but had never understood. The kind of kiss that said more than any words could say. The gasps from the crowd echoed through the temple. When Lyran pulled back, she was smiling. Her silver eyes were bright with something Danny had never seen in them before. Something that looked like joy. "I didn't choose you because you were the best humanity had to offer," she said softly. Only he could hear her now in the silence of the temple. "I chose you because you didn't know you could be. And now we'll discover it together." The priest finished the ceremony. Words were spoken, rituals were completed, and when it was over, Danny Reyes was a prince of the Volanthi Empire. His mother was crying. His father was trying not to cry. Rosa was still taking pictures. Even though her phone had died hours ago, Crown Prince Severin watched from the back of the temple. His face showed nothing. But when Danny looked at him, the prince gave a small nod. It was not approval, exactly. But it was acknowledgement, recognition, maybe even a little respect. That night, there was a celebration like nothing Danny had ever seen. Music and dancing and food from 100 different worlds. Creatures he couldn't name congratulated him in languages he couldn't understand. Diplomats and warriors and artists all wanted to meet the human who had won a princess's heart. Danny and Lyron escaped to a balcony overlooking the city. The lights below sparkled like fallen stars. "Are you scared?" Lyron asked. "Terrified," Danny admitted. "Good." She leaned against him, her silver hair catching the light. "The best adventures always start with fear." Danny looked out at the alien city, at the strange sky with its unfamiliar stars, at the future that stretched before him, vast and unknown and full of possibilities. "Then this is going to be one hell of an adventure," he said. And somewhere, across the galaxy, a new chapter in history had begun.